Hello, friends. Today on the podcast, I have a very special guest, which I can't wait to pick her brain on all the things. So, we have Adriana Shuman, who is a highly respected certified nutritionist and functional medicine health and wellness strategist, which I love that she has a degree in pharmacy, which I want to get into with her, and over 15 years of experiencing guiding people to vibrant health. She specializes in creating root cause focused strategies using her proprietary four-step Live Well methodology to help clients regain energy, improve gut and mitochondrial health, lower blood glucose levels, and achieve vibrant health. Adriana, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited you're here.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm so excited to be here too after listening to your podcast. I feel like we have a lot in common, so I'm very happy to be here and talk to you.
We certainly do. And as we just learned today, we're even in the same state where we reside. So this is super fun. So to begin, I am super curious and I've looked a little bit on your website, so I know a little bit, but you went into pharmacy, such as I did as well. And I'm just really curious how you landed up and pivoted into functional medicine in this space. If you can just share with us your journey of how you got here.
Yeah, well, my journey started actually in Slovakia. Going back, Czechoslovakia, it was a communist country back then. It became Slovakia when I was 14. Growing up in a small apartment, just European typical apartment, and started building. And it was a pretty brutal way of growing up. There was a lot of violence at home. My dad was very angry and violent with my mom, and my mom had alcohol issues, and I was put right in the middle of it. She was using me to protect him. On top of all the stress, we had mold in our apartment, drinking water out of faucets, eating a lot of fried food, even though it was homemade. It was a lot of fried food, a lot of sugar. So what I called my soil, my beginning of my life was pretty traumatic. And I was always, even though I kind of believed that my life was meant to be living in unwellness and constantly being sick. I was constantly on antibiotics and had all kinds of health issues, and I couldn't focus in school. And on top of that, watching my family members dying from cancer very painfully. I was led to understand all of this and all of this suffering. So I ended up in a pharmaceutical school and a university, which was one of my pivotal points because that's when I realized that medicine really doesn't help people. There's obviously place and time for medicine, as you know, but working in a pharmacy and handing out medication to people over and over, people coming back and returning for more and more medicine, I just had that inner intuition inside of me. This is not what I want to do. I studied this, but this is not what I want to do. So it wasn't really a choice. It was just being pulled what I called my light. And I always listened to it. I realized that I have to leave. I have to break the cycle of suffering of my family. And this is not what I'm meant to do. It gave me a great base of understanding science and how the pharmaceutical industry works, but I did not want to have any part of it. So I came to United States when I was 26. I had no English. I had no money. I just was determined to break the cycle and do whatever I can. And I knew that the resources back in Slovakia were just very limited. So I came to United States and I really started to dive more into healing myself first, because from all the trauma. And then as I learned English, I started to discover this functional holistic medicine. And it was instant. I just connected to that, and there was no decision making. I just followed that path really naturally and started to heal myself first. So that's kind of how I ended up from the school, from the conventional medicine to the functional medicine, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Similar to how I'm thinking, how I discovered functional medicine and wound up in this kind of healing sort of way is just there's limited use or not getting to the root cause, of really what is causing disease or what is causing unwellness, and for me, I kind of ventured into this with my over drinking and realizing, AA wasn't the strategy for me for many reasons, and really looking at how I can heal myself and change behaviors and change my patterns. And then because I've been drawn to alternative modalities, let's just say, it really started to open my eyes to like, oh, everything that I was taught necessarily isn't everything that's out there. So yes, once that world opened up, like with functional medicine and all the different testing that I was not exposed to that you can do. And I would really like to start pivoting our conversation to like around the gut, because I didn't realize that there was this gut brain connection. I didn't realize the gut had so much influence on our mental health, our immune health, just how it makes us feel day to day and our wellness. And like you say, the vitality and that vibrant health. What have you found with gut health and how you work with patients and clients to start that healing journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I like what you said. Once you discover the other side of medicine and you start feeling better immediately, the answer is pretty clear. There is no way of going back. And that is what I discovered with my clients. And it was myself and my family and friends. I realized that, it's really hard for people when I tell them, listen to your body. Obviously, we go through my methodology, which is the Live Well methodology, covers 4 pillars. First is environment, then it's food, then it's sleep and movement. It's just a circle that's all interconnected. And we really have to focus on all 4. They are interconnected. You can't separate one from the other in order to achieve vibrant health. So the very first one, though, we started with its environment, which is your soil, like soil for the seed that it needs to grow into a beautiful tree or whatever plant. And so what I start with my clients is testing. And testing is really important for them to see black on white what is actually going on inside their body. And I can see very clearly what dysregulations are happening there, because sometimes symptoms don't develop until later. So it's really difficult. And for people who are not that in touch with their body, when I tell them just listen to your body, how do you feel when you eat this? How do you feel when you sleep when you sleep like this, when you move like this, it's just really hard. So the testing is really powerful. And the gut, as we are discovering now, it is the base. And I tell people, if you just imagine the microbiome being this thriving neighborhood of a lot of people, they all have different jobs. They're all good at different things, not at one thing. And they all have different jobs, from taking care of the immune system, removing waste, whether it's hormones that are already been used in the body, they need to get out, or viruses, parasites, whatever is coming in from the environment, taking care of the brain, making hormones, making the short chain fatty acids that are necessary for the mitochondria to create energy. Like there is so much going on. So it's like, I just want people to imagine this neighborhood of all these people doing different things. Like imagine if every person in the neighborhood had the same job. You just have the one person doing the same thing. It wouldn't work. So we need the diversity. We need the specific amount. And when the microbiome is healthy and thriving and has a good diversity, that's when everything changes, from mental health, your mood, hormone regulation and production, digestion, detoxification, immunity, everything. That's where it all starts. And I also talk about the dream team is the microbiome and mitochondria, because they both work together in order to create that vibrant health that I teach through my methodology.
Beautiful. Yes. And having the right population in that community, right? Enough good bacteria, not an overgrowth of yeast or an overgrowth of bad bacteria, which sets us up for sugar cravings and a host of other things and throws us off balance. And then we wonder why we're hungry all the time, or why we're snacking all the time when we shouldn't be, or just desiring certain foods or palate changes because of that diversity or lack of diversity in the gut microbiome. Yeah. So when you're working with patients, you are testing them. Is it through stool, or what kinds of, is a blood test that you do to really kind of get a sense of how their microbiome is populated and working and non-working?
Yeah, I have very specific tests that I run with all of my clients, and I talk about specifically in my book Live Well as well. The first one is genetic test. You do that one once, and that's where it really gets you understand your unique biology, your unique body, because genes don't run your life, but we all have certain mutations in our genes that you might need specific extra support. Like, for example, for my daughter, she cannot have any fermented foods, which are so amazing for the microbiome that we're talking about right now. But if you have a mutation that your body cannot break down histamine, which is so rich in fermented foods, you're going to suffer. You're going to have health issues and you're going to wonder why. So the number one thing for me is always starting with genetics and just understand your unique biology and how you were made up. Number two is the stool testing. So I do Genova stool test. Number three is organic acids test. This is the test of all tests because you can discover from this test before on any other test, actually, you can see your mitochondrial function, if you have insulin resistance, your toxicity levels, your microbiome, how it's working, your oxidation. There is so much you can understand from organic acids test. Not many people, unfortunately, know this test. So I took it in my own hands and I took many classes and I continue to educate myself with the guy who teaches this, Dan Kalish. He's up in Berkeley. So I'm constantly taking his classes. He's absolutely incredible in this. The fourth one is complete blood panel from Boston Heart. I love that because it really gives you not just the basics, but really deep dive into the fats, the sugars, and again, toxins. And you can do all kinds of stuff with that test. And the last one, the fifth one is really crucial, is mycotoxins test, because a lot of people are doing pretty well, but they're constantly struggling with all different kinds of issues from rashes or high cortisol or headaches. And it's really just connected to mycotoxins. And we know that mycotoxins are linked to cancer, many different types of cancers. So that one is really, really important. And not very many people do it. And not very many people are even aware of mycotoxins test. And what I want to say about that one too is you need a specific plan on how to remove them. And mold is not just in homes. That's what most people talk about. Mold is in homes, but it's actually in food. So understanding where, once you find out that you have mold in your body, really identifying where it can be coming from all kinds of different foods, not just the environment.
Yeah, important to know. And I love that you took us through all those tests. Thank you for doing that. I have not had all those tests done. So you've piqued my curiosity about, wow, I should think about some of those tests. I have had some done. And I agree with you. There's something about, you think you're in touch with your body, but you're in touch with the body that you kind of don't know the inner landscape of. And maybe it's functioning okay, and maybe it's not. But when you see the tests done and you see black and white for yourself, when my practitioner shows me my own data, it's like, wow, you cannot deny. And then it's like, and it also is relieving in that you can target something and see if you do change it, does it make you feel better? And when I've done that targeting kind of pharmacology, let's say, changing, it may be movement, it may be these other modalities like the food I select, I do feel better. And the interesting thing is I didn't know I was feeling super bad or bad at all to begin with. I was just going on autopilot. So I love how we now have these tools. We now have these tests that can give us pinpoint data to see, hey, this is where our bodies can improve.
Yeah, this is so common what you said. You don't know how good you can feel until you start feeling better. It is so common with everybody. I'm going good. I'm fine. I'm functioning. Everything is fine. And then they start feeling better literally within 2 weeks of changing one simple thing. And they're like, oh, wow. Okay, so I'm supposed to feel this way. Yeah.
Yes. It's just like my clients who cut back on alcohol and they're like, I wasn't feeling that bad except, the morning hangover. But man, I didn't realize I can be firing on all cylinders. I'm sleeping better. I'm not craving sweets as much. I'm eating better. I want to exercise again. Before I was lacking motivation. So you're right. When you get rid of these toxins in the body, the body starts to want to repair itself and want to restore itself to health. which I
Yeah.
love that about the body, right? It doesn't want to be ill. It doesn't want to be diseased. And it does have a lot of natural repair processes if
Mhm.
we just allow and give it the modalities and the proper nutrition and health to do that.
Yeah, I tell people stop getting in the way of the natural biology and everything is going to be fine. As long as we go with the nature, we're part of the nature, we're going
Yeah.
to be okay. But as we go constantly and fight the nature and biology, we're going to develop problems.
Yes, yes. And some of that we may not be know that we are exposed to, like how you grew up. Maybe you didn't know that there was a different way to, not to avoid the tap water and, didn't know the apartment was full of mold and didn't know how the stress was interacting with your microbiome and your biology, right? You just didn't know and you probably didn't have any other choice at that point. But
Exactly.
once we know better and once we get educated and we're exposed to new information, which I love you coming on the podcast and sharing that with us, now we're like, oh, okay, maybe there is a way to resolve some of these symptoms that I'm having or feel better. I was wanting to explore next the role of food. I think this is so underrated and underappreciated, at least in my past. And the more I've educated myself and listened to other people's podcasts, particularly a lot of functional medicine practitioners, I've learned just the role of food, especially here in America. Oh my gosh, right? We we may be addicted to certain things or attracted to certain ways and styles of eating because it makes money for the big food or it's just addictive in how it was developed. So I'd love for you to give us some tips on how we should look at food and ways that we can use food for healing.
Yeah, I think the first thing to understand is food is a message to our body to either fueling disease or health. Whatever you have on your plate, just think about, just look at your plate. Is this going to fuel health in my body or is this going to fuel disease? And I think with just this simple framework, people are pretty smart to know how to answer this question. And I know food is really complex because we're addicted to specific kind of foods, right? But with simple behavioral changes, things can shift pretty quickly. I was addicted to sugar. My father was addicted to sugar. He died painfully from cancer. And as hard as it is to share, it was the day before he died in Slovakia. We were on the phone. I was in California already. I was talking to him and he asked me, "Can I have a glass of water with sugar, please?" He was
Mm.
so addicted. And it was hard to change because my mom wasn't willing to change the way she cooked and she was in charge of cooking. So understanding that you are in charge of your health and you're in charge of what you're putting on your plate is the first step that we have to realize. It's really the mindset shift because when we believe we are not in charge, we become passive participants in health and in our choices. There's nothing anyone can do. It's really diving deep into what are my beliefs, what are my stories about food. Like for me, it was just a lot of sugar addiction. What do I have to do? Or I couldn't throw away food. I felt guilty. I would finish the plate even though I was already full. So I had to go back and really heal the traumas from my childhood first. So I would say that's the first thing to do. Don't just push it away and work so hard on yourself and think it's your motivation or whatever. It's not. It's a very complex thing. But the very first thing I would start with, if you're having any trouble with food, just dive deep inside yourself first. What is it? Why is it? How did I grow up? What messages was I receiving from my parents and from my community? And then the framework that I teach is very simple. I don't believe on any diets. There are going to be different diets all the time. It's a huge marketing thing. There's specific diet plans that do work for specific diseases and conditions. But in general, most people, we just need a very simple framework. Fill your plate with plants, protein, healthy fats, spices, and ferments. Just like said about, fermented foods, not for everyone. So make sure it's okay with you. But the plants, protein, healthy fats, spices, and ferments, just focus on that in general and make sure the food is grown sustainably, organically, wild, pasture raised. So you're feeding the microbiome. And when you fill up on these foods, just the foods that come from nature, you're going to slowly change your microbiome. And when you change your microbiome, then the foods that you're craving are going to be very different. I don't crave any chocolate, any sugar anymore. It took me years because I had to figure all of this out, but you don't have to figure it out, because if you get my book Live Well, everything is there. You don't have to figure out anything. You just follow the simple frameworks. Again, there's no guessing, there's no restrictions, just understanding the basics, and you're going to heal pretty quickly.
I think that's so powerful where you started. It's a lot of the inner work that needs to be done. You know, you had in your example about around sugar. I know for me, around alcohol, that was my nemesis for a while. And doing that inner work, because if I just did a dry January, as I spoke about many times, I would just come back to February with the same story. Can't wait to have it. It's my treat. It's going to help me relax. Like all of the stories came flooding back. And then I wondered why the habit wasn't changing, because my inner work wasn't done. So going in to do and look at, where do these stories come from? And they could, you know, in my case, they didn't come from my parents. They came from society telling me this is the way adults have fun. This is what my friends were doing, you know, and of course you just want to fit in and you think that this is normal, and some people can do it and be okay with it. And some people do it. And like in my case, it was too much. It was too much for my body. My body was giving me those signals and it was time for me to listen. So I love that you started, right? Like that inner work, because that's the deep work that needs to change. And I like, and you know, you're an intuitive like me. It's like when you hear your body asking for a rescue, hey, throw me a lifeboat. At some point you want to listen. You want to listen, because otherwise, you know, you're beating yourself up. You're not feeling good about who you are and how you're showing up in the world. And then I also love what you were saying as well. It's like, okay, you don't have to follow a specific formula. Yes, there are guidelines, and just eating the earth, right? Eating what the earth created and not what came from a manufacturing plant in a big mixing bowl and lots of chemicals and foreign ingredients and dyes and things that increase a bliss point to the food and increase the addictability to the food. They know what works for our brains and our reward pathway. But Mother Nature really takes care of us, right? You know, what is grown on her soil, what is grown on her, you know, in the plants and in the wild, and, you know, not given hormones and pesticides and all the crap that we do to Mother Nature, I think is the best way. To love that little bit of guidelines on, okay, if you're going to select food, this is the best way. And you're right. It's just like with drinking, you know, the first week, it doesn't feel great. Your body's adjusting, your microbiome's adjusting, your brain is adjusting. You're not propping yourself and your emotions up with these ways of coping. But over time, your body changes it and adapts. Like, you know, now you don't crave sugar. Now I don't crave alcohol. Like your body, like you said, heals.
Yeah.
And it does feel vibrant. It feels like vibrant health.
Yeah. And it really doesn't take that much work when you have the right guidance. Like my book is a really clear roadmap, and it doesn't take that much time.
Yes.
When
Yeah,
you
2 weeks, right? If you've been
really,
with a problem with alcohol, a problem with sugar for years or decades, right? In a couple of weeks, it can change.
so think about how quickly 2 weeks go. If you're deciding, oh, I'm not going to start today, I'll start tomorrow. By that time, you could have been already completely changing your identity. So for me, I'm really big on just like stop someday, stop tomorrow, stop making all these excuses. Just really get out of your head. You know, whatever is happening right now in your body is going to lead to diseases if we don't stop. So just do it now. Like, and the
Yes.
best really way to just make the hard decision to do now. One simple thing. It doesn't have to be anything major. It can be just one simple thing. Put half a cup of beans on your plate every day, like, you know, or a quarter cup of nuts, like anything that will change the behavior that you're having right now that's not serving you.
Beautiful. And I like what you said, because overachievers and people who have told me they listen to this podcast and they're like, I so identify with you. I identify as an overachiever, right? Sometimes we are just overthinking things. We're just up in our heads a lot. Like we know all the information. Why aren't we executing? It's like, get out of your head and into your body, right? And that's where the action comes from, right? Get into your body and take action. So speaking of getting into your body, I know that's one of the key principles in your Live Well book is about movement. What tips or pearls do you have around movement that you'd like to share?
Movement is the best free medicine for your body and mind. And we're going back to the mind. I recently had a back surgery in October. It was emergency back surgery.
Oh,
And I can tell you the worst part for me was not being able to exercise after the surgery because of my mind. I did not know what to do with myself. It was so hard because that's where I get my energy. That's where actually all my great ideas come in. I always have my laptop in my gym at home because if something pops up in my head, I want to make sure I make a note of it. With movement, I like thinking about not exercising. That's why I didn't even call it exercising, call it movement, because we're meant to move. It's like right now I'm not sitting, I'm standing because my brain is working so much better when I'm standing than when I'm sitting. But movement is just part of life. And it depends on where you're starting from. I have a framework, simple framework I teach. It's called 3 W's. The first W is for walking. Just walk. Walk as much as you possibly can during the day. The second W is for weights. So lift weights, resistance training. We need muscle, not just for, looking better, but for better glucose metabolism and so much more. I have this scary example. My husband's mother, she's 72 and she's not able to take her trash bin out of her house out into the driveway, which is very short driveway, because she doesn't have enough muscle to do that. And that's just very scary. And that's not something that is normal. And we should be able to, take out our trash no matter what age. And the only thing we need to do is really lift some weights 3 to 4 times a week or do some kind of a resistance training. It can be bench training, it can be anything, right? And the third W is for winded. So get winded at least once a week. Do some kind of a sprint run, use ropes, bike, whatever is safe. I always tell people, make sure obviously you're safe no matter what movements you're doing. I learned that lesson, ending up on a surgeon's table. But wherever you're starting from, just do these 3 W's, the framework, and think about it as you're doing something for your life, not for exercise, if it's not something that you're obviously enjoying. I love exercise, but I understand not everybody does. So
yeah. Yeah. It's like an investment you make today that you get to cash in on in your 80s and 90s, right? It's like you're putting in those deposits into your muscle, into your bones, into your mental state. And then I find the more you do something, you find ways to enjoy it, right? You want to keep it up. And most people, when you're winded or just starting out and things are hurting all over, maybe it's not super fun, but as you get used to it, as your body adapts, your body's then going to crave it. And so I find it, it's just that first couple of weeks getting through, and then the body's like, yes, this feels good. This feels healthy. You sleep better, you mentate better, you're happier. And so you do want to keep up those habits.
yeah. Well, anything new is hard at first, but that's,
Yeah,
I tell people, if you're looking for everything to be easy, then your life is not going to be probably very joyful, because that's just part of life. That's what's part of humanity, even plants. We all have to go through harder times, so then things can be actually easier.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Adriana, I loved having you on the podcast. And as we wrap up, please tell people if you have any parting words or how they could get your book, Live Well, so they can purchase a copy and start their health journey and live vibrantly.
Thank you. So again, thanks for having me. And it was a nice conversation. Like I said, we have a lot in common, so it was really fun. I love hearing from people, so people can email me. They can find me on social media. I'm going to send you links. And my website, Your Wellness Made Simple /Live Well book. They can pre-order the book there right now. But yeah, people can also email it, reach out any way they can. I really love helping people out in any way I can.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I look forward to reading the book myself, and so thankful for you coming on the podcast today, Adriana. Thanks for helping us live well.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thanks for listening to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. If you're ready to take the next step to improve your health, wellness, and lifestyle goals, head over to www.epicyou.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Again, that's EPICYOU.com. Please note that the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice.